Satoshi Nakamoto has over 1 million coins sitting there, everyone can see. If Bitcoin was hacked, that would be the first to go. That hasn't happened. A really good mate of mine lost all his Bitcoin. He was using a ledger and downloaded a phishing ledger app, put his seed words into that, all drained, 14 seconds gone.
And there's only 21 million of it. I never would touch any crypto on the phone.
Fuck, I'm just going to think this through, because once that emergency plan's been used, which it has now, I can't use that again. Like that's gone.
It's not Bitcoin that's being attacked here. It's one very small portion of the world. What is the best way now? And what can you even trust? We're always told to verify, not trust. So what is actually the best way forward now? All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Crypto Coach Will. This is a follow-on episode from the recent cold card hack that happened. So I've got Sean from G'day from Bitcoin over on the other side. How you going, Sean?
Yeah, good, Will. Thanks very much for having me on. And what a crazy 2 weeks it's been, hey?
Absolutely nuts. I'm actually really keen to get into your side of the story because you're not at your usual location right now, which really plays into why it was so crazy for you. And look, I suppose what we'll do is we'll just lay the law of the land a little bit for people who are tuning in. Obviously, Sean and I, we're both massive into self custody. And taking sovereignty of your own Bitcoin is something that we're very, very passionate about. But recently, what's happened with this hack, it has rattled some bones and has definitely got us thinking of what is the best way forward, and is self custody right for everyone? Sean, do you want to maybe give a little bit of a run through of what actually happened with this cold card hack?
Yeah, so just at a very basic level, Cold Card is a manufacturer of Bitcoin hardware devices, wallets. Basically, some of them look like an old school calculator, others look a little bit more nerdy and they've got a full screen QWERTY keyboard. But they're just a hardware device with some software firmware on there. And they allow you to be able to sign your transactions, your Bitcoin transactions, to be able to either send or receive. You can create addresses. Now, most of us, and including myself, I was using the Cold Card Mark IV, use that to be able to create the seed words, which is basically like the password to be able to protect your Bitcoin. And you can either use 12 or 24 words. I don't know why anyone would go with 12 unless it's a hot wallet, just out of convenience. And if it's a little bit of funds, if you've got the option for 24. So you create the 24 words, and then you can go on top and you can add like a whole lot of words, 11 words, 50 words, whatever you want to on top of it as a passphrase, and then to be able to sign it. What happened is the device, when it was creating the seed words in there, it's meant to have like a random number generator in there, and it had like a couple of different ways that it generate random numbers. In the Cold Card Mark III, it was falling back to its basic random number generator, which wasn't very random. And with where AI is now super powerful and getting really smart, can crunch a lot of information, a lot of data, it worked out that the random number generator wasn't very random. You may be hearing the word entropy thrown around. All that means is randomness. It wasn't creating real entropy in there. And so so the people with a laptop and AI started draining. I think it's like 2,200 Bitcoin we're up to now, like 120 million
Yeah.
US
Like last
dollars.
time I checked, it was about 1,800 odd Bitcoin over 5,200 addresses. And to put the specific numbers there of how limited it made that entropy process, I think it had the MK2 at about 40 bits and the MK3 at 72 bits. It should be at 128 bits, which is obviously, for people that are understanding bits, is a much larger and more secure amount there. So, yeah, it's a shame that it's happened, but it has happened. And obviously, Sean, for people in the Bitcoin network who have done self custody before, and definitely people like yourself who are using a cold card, when this hack happened on the 30th of July last month, it really sent shivers through people's spines. It really had us questioning what is the best way now And what can you even trust? We're always told to trust, not verify, not trust. So what is actually the best way forward now? I want to jump into that in a moment, what the solution has been for us, and the deep dives that we've done. But you have quite an interesting and unique story. Talk me through where you were when all this happened, and, what an absolute head fuck it was for you.
Yeah. To be honest, it wouldn't have actually mattered where I was in the world because I geographically distribute my keys. The issue was being in the middle of nowhere on a mountain that I didn't have a hardware device on me, which is pretty funny actually, because when I was leaving, I had a foundation. I think at like Christmas time or something said, "Hey, do you want to check out a new device?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So they sent it to me, probably in the hopes that I was going to review it.
Mhm.
And I think maybe I showed an image of it once, but I've never really wanted to specifically like show hardware wallets or whatever because there's so much nuance. Anyway, it was sitting there, Passport Prime, like their touchscreen, really good one or whatever. It's just sitting there, no funds. There's no seed words loaded into it or anything. They're all white. They don't keep them at home. But I was like, it's just sitting there on my bench next to the desk, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll bring that. I'm like why? Like, there's no point, and put 10 grand or whatever on a hot wallet, no issue. I'm like, I'll just leave it at home. Fuck, it's a decoy. If the worst thing happens, they're going to take that. There's nothing gone there, like,
Yeah.
so be it. And that was my thought. It was just like, I'm not going to interact with Bitcoin on this trip or anything like that. Anyway, being here, top of a mountain, no fucking hardware device, nothing to be able to create the seeds and stuff. So I needed to go on a mission. I have never created, like, for my stacks, self-managed super fund, the company, and personal stacks, etc. Words ever on anything that's ever connected to the internet. So it's always offline, air gapped, just never connected to anything that's ever used AI on there, for example. So like all the right things. I was like, how the fuck do I move this? Like I needed to
Mm,
get people to go on a wild goose chase and enact my emergency measures, which I would have needed to have done regardless. So that wouldn't have mattered where I was. But without having that hardware device with the secure elements and everything like that, it just became like a bit of a head fuck of getting a new MacBook, brand new MacBook, setting it up, not connecting it, getting playing cards. I couldn't find any dye fucking anywhere, which was crazy to be able to generate the entropy and things like that. And then to go back out and then redistribute those keys and shit. And I had a week off. Like, thank God to be able to do this. But it
mm,
was like that's a lot. Like the average person's not gonna do that.
mm,
It was crazy. So, like, all in all, from when I decided to be able to do it to when I finished it was 5 days of doing things. If I wanted to do it another way, I could have probably done it in 8 hours or 2 days or whatever. But I didn't want to enact like my major emergency plan. But I had to
mm,
go down and sort of the second emergency plan a little bit more time, and I also wanted to give it a bit more time because I had a seed phrase on top of it. Was the Mark IV? Hadn't seen any verified Mark IVs being hacked, especially not with the passphrase. I'm like, fuck, I'm just going to think this through because once that emergency plan's been used, which it has now, I can't use that again. Like that's gone. Um,
mm,
which is fine. So there's still like a fallback and there's a new one in place now, but it's you know, that's a lot, and especially for someone that's just gotten into Bitcoin. You and I have been here for a while. You longer than I, but 6.5 plus years of
mm.
been in doing this. But just what a shit show.
Absolutely. And look, thanks for sharing your story because, someone listening to that, there's some things there mentioned which we'll get into a little bit later, rolling dice, the best practices that you can actually go through to secure, but also the fact that, you were in a remote location, something had happened and you were able to bring it all together, move it on to a different solution. There's a bit of power in that as well.
Dude, I could have
Nevertheless, I
been
want to jump
anywhere in the
in.
world
Yeah, yeah,
and done it,
and
it
like,
doesn't
to be
matter.
completely self-sovereign of a large portion of your wealth. Before we move on from your story, if you don't mind, I want you to talk to me. We had a couple conversations. So on the 30th, and the day after, we jumped on the phone. We were just talking, calming each other down, making sure we're both all right. And there was a really distinct difference between your level of calmness, even though it was a rattling situation, and your partner. Talk me through that.
Well, I hope she doesn't watch this. I'm sure she won't. Holy shit. So, obviously, like, it was happening so fast, like, you're on X, and the 30th, when it started happening, just boom, boom, fucking the wallets are being drained if you're on cold car, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
So my heart's going a little bit, and I'm like, We need a enact our emergency plan." She's like, "What?" She's like, and I'm trying to explain and stuff, but there's just X went crazy, man. Like, it was like smoking crack. It was just so full
Yeah.
on real news, fake news, FUD, people coming in between everyone's opinion and stuff like that. So, like, just trying to work all this stuff out and being like, oh fuck, like, we may need to enact that emergency plan and stuff. And she knows what an ordeal that is to be able to do it, and had like a week and stuff planned off.
Yeah.
We're gonna ruin our holiday and blah blah blah. And then she's like, fucking Bitcoin's not safe. You can't trust it. Like, something like this is gonna happen and blah blah blah. I'm like, she's like, we're selling it. I'm like, no, we're not. She's like, yes, we're selling it. I'm like, no, we're not. She's like, I'm selling all of mine. I'm like, it's your money, it's your choice. So that's totally up to you. That's the point of it. But I'm like, that's not a good idea. No, it can't be trusted. I'm like, what are you going to buy? And she's like, gold. And I'm like, where are you going to store that? And she's like, uh, I'm just going to buy gold, and I don't know, maybe I'll buy the gold ETF or whatever. I'm like, whatever. Fucking whatever. Um, and I couldn't come back to her because at that stage, in
Yeah,
those
yeah.
first 2 days, you're like, I actually don't know necessarily what the fuck is going on. Like,
Yeah.
I, um, so I didn't blame her for those thoughts and everything like that. And I guess because there was that time delay of bringing it all together, and things, she couldn't just go out and sell it like that. If it was on the exchange, probably right then and there, she would have hit
Yeah.
sell
Hit the sell
and
button.
gone. Um, so the setup, I guess, in that case, bought us a little bit of time. Having the passphrase training from the Bitcoin way bought us time and everything like that. And then, as it did, enacted Plan B, talked about it, went through all that process and stuff, and then saw like what went into the new setup with I use playing cards, but Dyer another way to be able to do it as well. And she's like, okay, like, that's all good. And then we're up here looking for property and stuff, and she's like, I got that Bitcoin for the house deposit and stuff. I don't want to use it for the house deposits. Like, can we come up with the money another way? And like, that's no drama. Like, cool. Like, this is so different to a week ago where you just wanted to be able to sell everything, and
Yeah.
now you don't even want to use it. So we're coming up with another way for the deposit and everything like that. Um, but yeah, dude, those first 2 days, just, I thought that
Just
was
great.
the end of it, because there's such a, like, with my wife for 4 years, she thought I was freaking crazy with this magic and internet money. And I've
Yep.
told the story many times, but I blackmailed her into listening to the big print on audible,
Yep.
audible book.
Yep.
Um, and there's 3 hours remaining, and she just starts crying and pull over with the car and the caravan. I'm like, darling, what's wrong? And she's like, I you you saved us. You saved me. You saved our family." And she's like, "I thought you were just crazy." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm crazy," but she's like, "Fuck, I didn't get it. I thought it was just magic internet money." I'm like, "It is just magic internet money, but it's actually magic." Um, but she's like, "Oh, like didn't get it," because she was always like, "I trust you to be able to do it." Like I can
Yeah,
see that you're so in deep, thousands of hours, just talking the best and the brightest, just freaking obsessed with it. Bought a plane, fucking Bitcoin on the side of the aeroplane in big bold letters. Um, her try to give her the Bitcoin standard, and she's like, what the hell is this? It's like brain
yeah,
melt, and she's already got like a job that requires a lot of thinking and everything like that. So I was like so dense. But it's like, I'm not going on this holiday if you don't read this book. And she did, and she's like, oh my god. But then it's only like a couple of little videos or a couple of little bit of snippets or whatever, these 1 minute sound bites. But Bitcoin's not a 1 minute conversation. It's not a 1 hour
mm,
conversation. It's not a 10-hour conversation. At 100 hours, you're starting to be able to communicate with other people that have put in, proof of work. But until that 100 hours, you're not going to be able to understand or really get what someone at 1,000 hours is going on about or doing or anything like that. So she's just like, oh,
100%.
trust. But in those situations, it's difficult.
I hope you're absolutely loving this conversation between Sean and I. And no doubt there's probably little bits and pieces in here that you may be getting a little bit nervous. Maybe you're questioning how you're storing your Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies in self custody. So I want to let you know that we actually host a live webinar every second Thursday at 5 p.m. And you can register for that webinar by clicking the link in the description of this video. This webinar goes into way more detail than just how to self custody your assets. We also go into strategy. We go into how to educate yourself with the right structure. Basically, I deliver my 4-step blueprint process to you to ensure that you're tackling the crypto market in the right way and building wealth long term. Go and register for it. It's absolutely free, and I'd love to see you there. Let's get back to the chat. I want to tap it. So, like, when we had that phone conversation, right? And again, what you nailed there is like, it is hard to explain this to someone when you're also, but I'm going to admit, having some doubts. It was a bit of a
Like,
crisis
yeah,
situation. Obviously, we understand Bitcoin to the nth degree, and we're very confident in it. But when your whole stack is potentially, at threat, you start going, shit, like what's going on here? And I think
yeah,
the thing that you said to me that was the difference of, you got to a point where you're like, nah, I'm chill with it. I understand what happened here. You said, look, it's because you've read the books, like you've done that hard research, you really understand it. Whereas your partner, at the start was skeptical, did a little bit of the reading enough to, feel comfortable having exposure to Bitcoin. But then when something goes wrong, probably didn't have enough reading to understand what actually went wrong, right?
that's right.
Wasn't able to isolate that it was actually just a third party issue. It was a software issue. And we understood that it was just the way that that software generated the keys made it not very random. It actually made it very limited. And as soon as we were able to identify that, right, we're able to take a step back and go, okay, it's not Bitcoin that's
That's right.
being attacked here. It's one very small portion of the world and one third party software, really, not even the hardware. So that's the message that I really want to install to anyone that is watching this right now is really make sure that, okay, we're going to get into a conversation now about institutional custody versus self custody and taking sovereignty of your own Bitcoin. And where should you start doing that in your journey is the interesting part. And it really comes back to, how well do you actually understand what's going on with that self custody. So any comments on that, Sean?
Uh, No, I think let's just get into it. But yeah, just to double click on your point, Bitcoin didn't get hacked. There is nothing wrong with Bitcoin. It's TikTok, next block. It's working as intended. It's perfect. For example, Satoshi Nakamoto has over 1 million coins sitting there. Everyone can see. If Bitcoin was hacked, that would be the first to go. That hasn't happened. Um,
Spot on.
yeah,
And we can get into a bit of a quantum chat in a second, but let's jump into this, I suppose, philosophical, approach to how you should maintain your exposure to Bitcoin. I'll kick it off. I obviously deal with the retail markets like in a substantial manner. We've helped over 1,000 people get into cryptocurrency build strategy through our crypto academy, and there is the pocket of people that absolutely are just not fit for self custody. Okay. They're not necessarily stupid, but they are the type of people that, don't they're not very diligent. They rush things. They don't go and fully understand it. And for those people, sometimes it is better to have more institutional exposure, whether it be an ETF, or whether it be leaving it, on a custody holder like Stormrake, who we both are very close with Bishop. So from our point of view, because we've seen that happen, early days, I was a big Bitcoiner, not your keys, not your coins. Would ideally want people to move into that self custody straight away. But you see those stories of people making mistakes, forgetting the keys, getting hacked. Someone contacts them and they give them their seed phrase and they lose everything. And that does really change who is it suitable for. So from a
Yeah.
timeline perspective with our clients, generally they keep their custody on Stormrake, and they keep their custody on Stormrake until they get to a point where they actually understand cryptocurrency, they actually understand Bitcoin, or there's an amount of money in there that it's like, if I lost that, like, I've got enough exposure to Bitcoin here now. If I lost that, it would be a really tragic day, not just like a shit, I lost that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we start to get people, okay, now that you're understanding it, now you can look into self custody. And I want to get into the options there. But what's your thought process, Sean? I think you're more on the get in self custody straight away. What's your thoughts now?
Dude, until 2 weeks ago, I was like, at the start, we're going to talk about how you should protect. I was like, that's what I was like, you should have Bitcoin in self custody, not your keys, not your coins. If you don't have it, you're just a fiat cuck. Like, I was pretty toxic Bitcoin maxi. And
Yeah.
over the last two weeks and a couple of other things, happened. A really good mate of mine lost all his Bitcoin. He was using a ledger and downloaded a phishing ledger app, put his seed words into that, all drained, 14 seconds gone. But yeah, until sort of 2 weeks ago, I was like, not your keys, not your coins. It's just not yours, and there's really, like, it's the right way, it's the best way. Now over it, it's funny because I've got a couple of contradicting thoughts. For the
Mm,
last 18 months, I like 18 months ago, I started saying, like, you've got 12 to 36 months to get Bitcoin self custody. In my opinion, I think the government's going to come and they're going to ban self custody. And a little bit of a tinfoil hat conspiracy, but like the monochrome ETF, you used to be able to buy that, fill out some paperwork, and you could redeem real Bitcoin. They cancelled that.
hmm.
And that was just recently, a couple of weeks ago. So I don't know, maybe 6 to 12 months. I still think that's likely to play out. Like, Australia is so tyrannical. It's and Bitcoin in self custody is true freedom, sovereignty. But if you don't understand what you're doing, and if I'm saying those things, and people are like, oh fuck, and maybe that's a little bit of a fear mindset, then like you panic and you fuck up and you don't do things right, and it's not air gapped and it's not true entropy and everything like that, and you're like, fuck up these things, or something like this happens and you haven't put in the work, you enter your seed words, or whatever can go wrong. So my thoughts now have changed actually quite a bit. For context, like, my strongest, deepest belief is that people should really aim and strive to have at this stage one Bitcoin in self custody, whether it's single sig with the passphrase or multi sig, but where they don't need to ask like an organization or somebody else permission to access that Bitcoin. So if worst comes to worst, shit happens, a family of four, you can get up and go anywhere in the world, and your food, your shelter, your clothing, travel is taken care of. And I think that's freedom. It gives you the optionality if the worst of the worst happens, and maybe that's proper prepper doom level. If I'm wrong, but you've learned to be able to self custody it anyway, you got Bitcoin in self custody. The issue is, if you don't learn to do it properly, you can fuck it up. So my thoughts have sort of like changed a little bit. Um, but also keeping in mind, more Bitcoin's been lost from exchanges being hacked than from this cold card incident, it was 1,800 Bitcoin, where it's been like hundreds of thousands. But I do think maybe for the early days, it's just actually more important. Number one, to study Bitcoin, read the books, read the bugs, and once you study it, naturally you'll want to buy it. And like that's the best thing to be able to do. In the last 5 years in this country, the Australian dollar's lost 60% of its purchasing power. Bitcoin's up like 800, 900% since then over the long term. So like you want to start buying it, but should you now take it straight into self custody? No, I don't think so. I think like to leave it on the exchange while you're doing it. If it's 10 grand, I'm happy to leave 10 grand on my personal name in the exchange. Um, Under 100,000 for the company and stuff, and then I'll sweep it. But for people just getting into the space, if it's 10,000 in Bitcoin, and you've got two options. You can either spend time, you can pay in your time to learn how to self custody, or you can pay someone to be able to learn to self custody. If you're paying for it, the portion of your stack that you'd pay to be able to secure your stack, maybe that math don't work out right away. So like continue just to keep stacking, building it up, getting it there, reputable exchange. I use Amber app and I use Stormrake, different ones for different things. They've both got, like, Amber's got this incredible vault, geographically distributed multi-sig, probably a very similar or like the same strength setup as what Bish does, as well as Stormrake. And they've got like a huge reputation, everything like that. So I don't know if the risk so much with either Amber or Stormrake is they're going to get hacked as much as possibility,
Mm.
but it's a low possibility. It's more just that paranoia of the government coming in. But stopping you being able to self custody it, but you're still exposed to price exposure and stuff there.
100%.
So I
No,
don't
that's
think
a
you're going to lose anything.
Just quickly, if you're ready to take your results to the next level, my team at Imperial Wealth Crypto can help. Inside our Crypto Academy, you'll get access to my personal portfolio, strategies, real-time market insights, and the exact plays my team and I use to stay ahead. With our team of analysts monitoring the markets 24/7, we've helped investors catch moves like a coin that's done a 5x in 4 days. If you're serious about accelerating your wealth, click the link below to book in a call with my team of experts and see how we can help. Now, back to the episode.
It's one of those things. I'm kind of glad that this has happened in a sense. Like, obviously, I don't want to be saying that, and people who have lost Bitcoin, are going, "Oh, are you?" Like, no, I'm not being insensitive in that direction. But in terms of Bitcoin evolving, I think it's an important thing to happen for people that are new to crypto and new to Bitcoin coming into it to actually understand what is at stake. And the responsibility, to go into self custody. And also, I don't say that in a way that I still have my mantra. I still believe if it's not your keys, it's not your coins.
Exactly.
However, the amount that you need to do to prepare for that is substantially higher than what people thought in the past. Most people, I guarantee you, that go and buy a Trezor, a Ledger, a Cold Card, probably think that the Bitcoin is on that hardware wallet. That's like
Yeah.
the unfortunate truth is that people probably think that the Bitcoin's actually on there. I would say 90 to maybe like, or probably 50 to 60% of people, a number out of the head, really, they probably don't realize that, how the actual seed phrase is actually being created on that, through the entropy, through the randomized numbers, and to spit out that, using the BIP36 words to give you those 24 words. So most people just don't understand that level of how Bitcoin security is set up and how your seed phrase is generated and how that relates to the blockchain. And if you don't understand that just yet, that's kind of the point for me that I'm going, I think you question putting all of your Bitcoin definitely in self custody, but even any at all, you need to at least understand some of those basics before you go and start doing that. Not just, hey, I can just buy this wallet and how to store your seed phrase in 2 different locations. Like, I don't think that's really enough anymore, especially if it's your full stack that's going on to the wallet. Another
Yeah.
point that I want to raise as well, like more on the philosophical stance, is, did this waver my conviction in Bitcoin at all? And, in the early days, maybe it did a little bit. The point now, and I want to bring quantum into the debate because that's probably for me, even though I still believe it's a while off, it's still a question mark for me. Of well, once this quantum computing is in operation, how easily Bitcoin wallets can be hacked. That's still a big question mark in terms of having a lot of your wealth in there. So
Yeah.
that's probably for me the unanswered bit. What's your thoughts on that, Sean?
It's I was just trying to look through my notes from one of the sat signals because I wrote it down in regards to it. I had a really good conversation maybe last year, 2025, really early with Preston Pish in regards to quantum. A very smart, intellectual man, Preston Pish. And even at that stage, there's some Bitcoin improvement proposals to make Bitcoin quantum proof. Do you remember what the two latest ones are now? Is it 395 and 396?
Yeah, correct, exactly. Yeah, 396 is actually the quantum one, and I think 395 has some elements of it.
Yeah. So, like, people obviously much way smarter than me. Like genius level, don't understand what they're saying. They're like looking at this and doing that, but I guess it gives you that fear after what happened is AI came in and started cracking what we thought was entropy. At that stage, we figured it out as because of the software fallback. The Like we don't know what we don't know, and this stuff's getting powerful. Like just what AI can do now is scary, and then quantum to be a bigger leap up on top of that. It can go one of two ways, can't it? Like quantum happens really quickly and it comes in there and it destroys Bitcoin and it's game over. Or the people working on this quantum proof side of things and the um and people choose to signal and implement that. Like we just went through bit 110 and people is dead on arrival, nobody had the interest to be able to signal and align with that and it split off and now he's shitcoin or whatever he's doing. I don't know, I sort of try to stay out of it. But if there's this like conversation or whatever, but people aren't running nodes and they don't switch over to this quantum proof thing, or we switch over to the quantum proof thing, but there's a bit of a bug in there and it discovers that and we do it, sort of like a little bit of a chicken and egg. I ultimately do think um, we'll get to the other side of it and it'll be good because like we need to think about like all the nuclear codes and all the money. Bitcoin is so small in regards to it's a couple of $1 trillion. Like there's $900 trillion of fiat derivatives and stuff out there that they're going to go over. And if they do hack Bitcoin and steal whatever, they've made it worthless. So there's sort of that saves it as well in a way, but it'll be interesting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Obviously quantum computing, and there are bigger targets. There's U.S. military defense, there is financial banking systems, there is all of this that it can, attack. But I still am a little bit, and I just like to be honest. Like I'm still of that mindset that if this is an asset that majority of my net wealth is in, I am earning to have some sort of solution sooner rather than later. And if I'm thinking that, imagine, what institutions are thinking, and that could be a reason why price is getting a little bit suppressed right now. So I always like to just be really honest. I still have majority of my net wealth. I still think it is the most amazing piece of technology that's been invented in my lifetime. I think that the financial system on its own is completely corrupt, and not designed to help the middle class at all. And so Bitcoin does solve that solution there. Quantum is probably, if anyone ever asked me new getting into crypto, it's probably the only thing that I go, yeah, there's a bit of an asterisk there. So if we want to get in the educational side of that as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, when I do look into what is actually the issue, for me, it is that when you make a transaction from your wallet, it tells the blockchain your public key, and then obviously you have your private key. And so once quantum, catches up, it can basically decode and put the two of them together and get access to your wallet or your private. You can decode your public key and get your private key essentially. So the solutions in my mind there, and I want to start getting into what our best self custody stack looks like without saying the exact thing. But I started going down the rabbit hole of multisig, right? And multisig essentially means that you have to sign from, say 2 of 3 potential devices, rather than just relying on, the signature coming from one device. And so the interesting thing for me would be, I thought, oh, shouldn't that solve quantum? Because if you could, have to sign from 3, but even if someone got access to all 3 wallets, then, they might not know which wallet is 2 and 3. They might have wallet 1 and they can see that there's some Bitcoin, but they don't know which the 2 to sign from. But, the further I deep dived on that, it looks like that's not even right. It would just be able to, to sweep it all. So yeah, that's the quantum one is probably the biggest asterisk that I have now. And I don't have my honest answer is I don't really have a solution for that, and there isn't really a solution for that. There's obviously a lot of money throughout the industry being poured into finding that solution, so I do have faith on that side. But if we push quantum outside, of the equation, I still am going down that multi-sig option now. So rather than just having, one ledger or one Trezor, setting up that multi-sig where there's 3 devices from 3 different companies. It might be Trezor, Ledger, and then one other one. And
That
that
won't
way
be
you
fucking
don't fall
Ledger.
in.
I hope not, bro.
No, not a ledger. So more for the normies listening, they know the brand, but yeah, we shouldn't even be recommending that. So fuck ledger off. But your Trezor,
Foundation.
2 other devices, and that is for me going to solve that side with what happened with Cold Card. Even if one of those, well, let's say Ledger was in there and it was an issue, well, you still have 2 other devices, so you're not stuck to one company that does go to shit, or did not check their code properly. So that's kind of where I've landed. Multisig's probably, in my opinion, highest level of security. Sean, do you have any opinions on multisig? Any counter arguments on multisig versus single sig?
No, I actually agree with all of that. Couple of nuances, just to be able to think about. Say like a lot of people are using companies like Casa and Nunchuk. Neither an endorsement or a discredit or anything like that. They're just and heard actually really good things about and not opposed myself to be able to do it. I just think, I guess, from like an overly paranoid point of view, with Casa, for example, you can set it up, they keep a key, you can create one on your phone, and then you create one with a hardware device. My only like overly paranoid is if, say, you're targeted and your phone gets confiscated by the federal police or whatever for whatever reason. They unlock your phone. They've now got that hotkey on there. They can see it's with Casa. They call up, and then they get that second one, and then they've got their stack. That's really like the overnoid paranoia. But they've also fixed this where you can do like 2 out of 3. So that's that 2 out of 3 setup. But instead of using the phone to have one of the hotkeys or, the seeds, you can just use 2 hardware devices to be able to do that. So if you're going to go into Signal Sig, there's a couple of different ways to be able to do it. You can use like a institution like that. And I think that's potentially a good option for the right folks. It's well worth looking into. Do your own research, see if it's right for you. Tony and the team at the Bitcoin Way helping people create their own multi-sig setup, so you're not relying on a third party at all. That will be like, highest grade setup that you can do. So just like sort of like look around, but just try thinking like, what are in the worst case situation, if the feds do have your phone, they can see it there. Is there any way that they can collude with Casa to be able to do it? Or is somebody else doing single sig I mean, Multisig on your behalf, and then they've got a relationship with that company or whatever. It's just like ask these questions, look into these details. I don't know the answer for it,
Yeah.
but I think they're a
And I think
conversation worth having.
100%. And like, similar to you say, like, no, fuck Ledger. I personally, I actually don't trust the phone at all for anything crypto related. So, and you mentioned that yourself as well. So I would never have, for that exact reason. I mean, you have to have your phone on you these days. I get it. I would love not to not need a phone. If you know me, I'm pretty slow sometimes getting back to a message or whatever. Like I just don't like the idea of it. Never have. But these days you have to have one to operate. But for that exact reason, as you say, you go into one country, they seize your phone, they can get through it and have access to it. I never would touch any crypto on the phone. I think the multiple hardware options is great. And then to go into what you're saying there with this Casa and Nunchuk, for those who haven't heard of these companies, and we're going to be educating our clients on both of these as well. It's basically the ability that it seems really weird you're giving them a private key, but it's so that, say, you're traveling around the world, you always need at least two signatures. You can have like a 5-stack hardware. You can have 5 like wallets or hardware devices, 5-stack, and need 3. Pardon me. And need 3 signatures. That is one way that you can go about multi-sig, or you can have 3 devices and need 2 signatures. And you can essentially give one of those keys to this company so that you still need to sign if you need to send money off, but they can sign for you. It's great for people who are traveling around the world, might not always have access to those 2 devices. Great for inheritance planning as well. So there is actually someone there that can communicate with the inheritance people and release. So there are definitely benefits to it. But where I really land, whether it's multi-sig, whether it's single sig, whether it's leaving some money on an institution like Stormrake, I think diversification is not a bad way to go. I think
Yeah.
you should not have your whole stack in one position. You should ideally, once you've read the books, once you've got the understanding, you should get to the point where you maybe have a bit of on a single sig, maybe have some on a multi sig, maybe have some through like the Casa or Nunchuk, where they can sign for you. Spreading it out is pretty key in my honest opinion, and ideally to the point that if you lost any of those, it's not going to completely destroy you. It's always going to suck if you lose a Bitcoin or 2 Bitcoin or $100,000, $200,000, but it's not going to completely destroy you if one of those solutions goes down. And that's honestly where I land at the moment. Are we in a perfect world? Has Bitcoin, and it's only 15, 20 years young. This is just an amazing piece of technology. Understand your risk to reward when getting involved in it. It has absolutely paid massive dividends for people like Sean and myself who've been in this industry for such a long time. Where we see this going, when you fully understand Bitcoin, there's only 21 million of it, how the mining works, how secure the network actually is. Again, never been hacked. Bitcoin has never been hacked. Only a third party influence, such as a seed generator, has led to hackings or exchanges being hacked. So this is an amazing piece of technology, amazing piece of wealth storage, and have your wits about you, understand the risk to reward, and spread it, diversify it. That's pretty much where I land, Sean.
I couldn't agree more with all of that. And I think at the start, like you're asking where I land, I'm like, I believe the best thing to do is have one Bitcoin or access to one Bitcoin in self custody, no permission. But I guess like the other side of that is after this, like diversify and add on different ways, and different strokes for different folks. And some people, like say, like someone with $100 million and they want to keep it in Bitcoin, they may not want that even on multisig. Maybe they use collaborative custody or something. I would never do that, but those options are out there. The ETFs are out there. There is plenty of things people can do. Just one thing for people that I'd like to share is, while I wouldn't do anything serious on my phone, I do have hot wallets on there, and I just treat it like cash in a wallet, like a leather wallet. I'd be willing to lose it. For me, that's up to 10,000. Usually I won't have that much on there, but like it wouldn't be devastating to be able to do it. But say Aqua, for example, when you set it up, it says um like write down your seed phrase and stuff, and I'll only give you 12 words to be able to do, but it's got Bitcoin and it's got Lightning on there. So it's like a really good way to be able to teach yourself. Buy Bitcoin, say on Amber app or Stormrake. The reason I'm saying Amber app at the moment is because you can send out on Lightning as well, and you can just do a little bit. So, like, say somebody new to Bitcoin, oh, they're like, oh, really interested, want to learn about self custody. All right, put $100 on Amber, and then send out $50 to Aqua on the main chain, $50 on Lightning. You'll see how it does. You can swap between it. You're learning to be able to write down that seed phrase. Once you write down that seed phrase, delete the app off your phone and then reinstall the app and then put those words back in. Check that the money's actually there. So that's like a very low risk way of being able to do it, because you'd never keep more money on this than you'd ever be willing to lose. But I
Mm.
think that's the only real time that I'd interact with the phone and Bitcoin. It's just sort of like a spending account when you go out, or I need to pay for a
Spot on.
video
And
editor
look, at the
or
end of the
something
day,
like
hey,
that.
like I said, I wouldn't put my crypto on a phone. I mean my majority stack, right? Like I use
Yeah.
my phone for paying from my bank account all the time. So it's that convenient amount, whatever that is to you, whether it's a $5,000 that sits there, whatever it is. Yeah, I totally think that side's fine. Obviously, when we're talking about best solution, it's like your storage of wealth, your wealth stack.
Yeah, that's right. And it's so hard because it's so nuanced. Like, it's is it like your whole entire net worth? Is your whole entire net worth $500, 5,000, 10,000? Is it hundreds of thousands, is it millions, tens of millions, or whatever? And it's different conversations. But hopefully, with our banter going back and forth, it's given people just some ideas of looking in, like, do your own research. It's a trope within Bitcoin, but I think it's well worth it.
Spot on. And yeah, like honesty is just the best way forward. Some people maybe be listening to this conversation got a bit rattled, and I didn't think about that. That's what we want you to experience. We don't want you to be naively being involved in, a technology, a storage of wealth, which is a new way, without understanding things to the nth degree. Don't go into this blindly. So go and do your reading, do the research. In the link in the description below, I've got a link there for our live webinar. Come and join that. It's absolutely free. And we go through these types of conversations, as well as building a strategy around dollar cost averaging, as well as having access to good information, as well as security, your tax structures, absolutely everything about building wealth in cryptocurrency, majority in Bitcoin. So if that's for you, if your interest is sparked at that level, the link is in the description. Sean, thank you so much for jumping on. I love having a chat with you because it's just at an honest level, and we just say it how it is. We're not trying to have any second agenda. It's literally just about educating people and telling people exactly how we're hearing things. So, any final words from yourself, mate?
No, yeah, actually, it's certainly like a hard conversation to be able to have at the moment because it is also new. Obviously, Bitcoin means a lot to me because of the freedom side. Number go up and stuff is great. It's amazing. It's marketing, but Bitcoin is a true revolution. It is FU money. It allows you to just have so much options, and you don't need to ask anyone for permission. Guess from childhood trauma and shit like that, not being in control of my life. Now I can be in control of my life. So there will be that's like the bias that I'm coming from, is I truly believe that. um, but like anything in life, like Bruce Lee, take what works and just discard the rest. Like, my opinions are for me, my outlook, my situation, my biases, and there's probably many unconscious biases that will subtly come across that I'm not aware of. And I just truly believe that's why reading the books and doing your own research is so important, or like going and getting in contact with the right people will, through He's gone, but he'll be back. Will, through his training with Imperial Wealth there, he's put a link in the description, g'daybitcoin.com, the website. You can check out that. But just continuing like this learning education, what works for you? Because Bitcoin's this magic, amazing technology, and you can really shape it for something that's going to work perfect for you, and that will probably look something very, very different from what my setup is, or what Will's setup is, or Tony Yazbek, or Adam Hudson, or whatever. But it's brilliant, and don't let like the fear, the uncertainty, and the doubt stop you from studying and pursuing. And what you do with that information is ultimately, time will tell whether you're on the winning side of history.
I love it, Sean. Awesome final words, and we'll definitely have you back on the channel very soon. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Leave your comments down below. We want to hear from you, what you're thinking. Stay safe out there, and keep stacking the sats.
Thanks for tuning in to Crypto Coach Will. If you got value from today's episode, then make sure to subscribe so you never miss the latest tips to navigate the crypto market. If you're ready to take crypto investing to the next level, check out the links below where you can book in a call with my team of experts. We place strong emphasis on educating before investing in the market, so take advantage of the knowledge they have to share. Don't forget to follow us on socials @CryptoCoachWill, and I'll catch you in the next episode.